Nepal, the birthplace of Buddhism. A magical and mysterious land in which legends such as the fabled Shangri-La and the elusive Yeti have dominated culture for generations. But a new story has emerged. One that is being seen as a modern miracle, something only possible through the spiritual power of Buddhism.
It's a phenomenon that people draw great pride and inspiration from here.
Rambon Jan, a 15-year-old boy, has been meditating in dense jungle without food or water for 10 months. Many suggest he is a physiological and cognitive freak with such immense power of mind over matter that it could change the way we look at modern science and medicine forever.
If he's truly gone without food and water, it's difficult to explain on a purely scientific basis, so you'd have to bring in spirituality in here.
As millions of pilgrims flock to the site, we'll explore the truth.
To see that in the middle of Nepal, in the middle of all the crowds around, that's very, very special and very questioning, of course.
Is he the second coming, Buddha reincarnate? Or is this something far more sinister? An elaborate hoax in which a young boy is being starved to death before our very eyes for profit. Many people fast for religious or health reasons for short periods of time, but they never reject all sustenance.
The longest a person can go without food has been documented as being around 2.5 months before you die of starvation. In an open environment, breathing normally with warm air surrounding you without any fluid at all, you would last between 4, perhaps 5 days.
Rambon Jan has not eaten and, more importantly, not drunk anything for 10 months. By filming him continuously over the next 4 days, we will investigate this phenomenon and discover whether a human being can live without food and water.
It would be impossible to meditate for that long without food and water.
I studied similar cases in the past, and this is possible.
Through his deep meditation, he's gone into a hibernating state, and he is living on spiritual energy.
I can't accept that. It goes against what I know about how the body works, about the nutrition that you need. He's getting food and he's getting fluid from somewhere.
Ram has never been scientifically tested. He sits undisturbed as millions watch his every move.
If he did the same thing in Birmingham or in Baltimore, I'm not sure that the society would perceive him in the same way. Why isn't he in school? Why doesn't he get a job? He should be doing something.
Nepal is a country relatively untouched by the global market, when 90% are devout Hindus and 10% Buddhist.
I think it's a great story for Nepal. I think it comes to the right time. Nepal is in a state of political turmoil. So I think it's very interesting that all of a sudden there is this birth of a myth in front of our eyes, just starting.
Nepal faces a stark, desolate reality without its religious beliefs.
I don't know if the story of Ram Bahadur Bomzan appeals to a certain consciousness now, looking for some saint, some figure, someone who can perform miracles at a time when life seems so tawdry and broken and uncertain.
As science progresses, it's pushing God further and further out. And where science hasn't yet encroached, you will find God.
Ram began meditating in May 2005. By November, the remarkable story hits the press worldwide. Newspapers claim fake. Government officials say that the boy's local supporters have received around £4,000 in donations. Up until now, no film crew has been allowed up close. We will attempt to be the first to obtain proof of the claims of the Buddha boy. With fierce loyalty, his followers hide him at certain times of the day. This has drawn suspicion, but who are these followers, and what are their motives?
What has happened is that because of the people who've started coming in, it's turned into kind of a circus.
Soon, roads become nothing but dirt tracks. After traveling more than 12 hours from Kathmandu, the last 40 kilometers through dense jungle, suddenly a gate manned by sentries bars the way any further. And we're diverted to a bustling temporary city of hawkers, fast food sellers, and a bus park in the middle of nowhere.
Previously, we used to farm only, but now there are jobs available. There is good income.
Amazingly, 10 months ago, there was nothing here but jungle. The city has been expanding at an astonishing rate ever since the boy began his meditation.
There is a kind of economic desperation which perhaps a phenomenon like this would attract people.
I used to run a restaurant in the city, but this one makes much more money.
After walking 5 kilometers from the temporary city with the throngs of devotees, we are confronted by crowds 20 deep and the boy surrounded by a series of barbed wire fences. We have to fight our way through just to get a glimpse from the 50-meter fence. People have come from far and wide. Many have walked for days. Some give offerings, others pray. All give donations. We need to get closer than the fence is allowing us, and soon realize that Ram's eldest brother is running the site. Granjaji Bonjan leads the committee, an 18-strong self-appointed group set up to protect the boy's welfare, and it will be his decision if we are allowed to film.
Today I'm busy. Maybe tomorrow is a good day.
Finally, he lets us film inside the 50-meter boundary. Unfortunately, just as we reach a second fence at a distance of 25 meters from the boy, we're stopped from going any further. So it is here we start recording. By the end of our first day, Ram has not moved a muscle since we began filming 8 hours previously.
If you wanted to prove that he really wasn't taking any fluid at all, you would have to film continuously for at least 4 to 5 days.
At 10 p.m. we are moved back to the 50-meter fence, too far away for our infrared cameras to pick out the boy.
Without water, even under reasonably good conditions, you're talking about lasting no more than about 4 days.
He's trapped behind a gate padlocked by the brother. He has the only key. It is the only access in or out. By staying at the site and continually filming, we hope to find some clues to support Buddha Boy's remarkable claim. In Nepal, Ram Bonjan, a 15-year-old boy, has been meditating in the hollow of a tree for 10 months. He plans to continue for 6 years.
I do know of a case of a medical student who did survive without food for something like 43 days, but he was able to survive on snow.
So far, his supporters claim he has not eaten or drunk anything.
I get the feeling this is going to be slightly different than some of the other Hindu scams that have happened. Some of these are not genuine holy men. They have long beards and then they smear themselves in ashes and then they would be in cahoots with the local villagers. This one, I think, will carry on a bit.
We're into our second day, 27 hours into filming. Still not enough to prove if this is a miracle or a scam. To find out the truth, we're staying on site day and night to film continuously for another 69 hours, as this is the time it takes for an average human being to die without any water.
And like 70% of the body is water. Without it, it would affect every physical functioning of the body.
By day 2, you start to cannibalize the stores of protein that you have.
I would say from day 2, your skin is going to get rough, cracks appearing at the corner of the lips, and the skin will lose its color and the brightness and the elasticity.
So far, we have not seen any of these physical changes in the boy's appearance.
He is surviving on nourishment. The question is, what kind of nourishment? We can't, as Westerners, tap into using spiritual force and spiritual energy for nourishment. That's the key here.
Every morning, an army of hawkers move in, selling Buddha Boy merchandise, including brochures, photo albums, and DVDs.
We started selling these CDs a month ago when we were allowed to do so.
Many of the sellers and pilgrims think he is the reincarnation of Buddha.
His dream has been to gain Buddha's knowledge and spread the light of peace.
The similarities are uncanny. Siddhartha, the Buddha, was born a mere 150 miles away, to a mother with the same name, Maya Devi. Both chose to meditate for 6 years under the same type of tree and follow a life of abstinence. Buddha eventually found enlightenment through meditation, and that is what Ram is trying to achieve.
You can see a light coming from the top of his head and sometimes from his forehead.
Many of the stories that are circulating the site are probably just gossip, but they all feed the myth and the growing aura of the boy. One story that started the legend was that poisonous snakes bit him on 2 separate occasions.
I saw him after the snake bite, and he looked very pale.
Cobras and vipers are common to the area, and their bite is fatal. Incredibly, Ram required no medical attention from the bites.
Because of his meditation, he flew, the poison.
I heard about it. Some saw the blood, but no one saw the snake.
He was sweating there, and with the sweating, his poison was gone.
The boy himself does seem to have some spiritual powers.
If we were bitten by a snake, we were already gone. Just because of his pure meditation, he's alive.
You know, you could question if you don't believe in these things, but the people his family seems to have faith in it, so we have to sort of recognize that.
True or not, it is apparent that Ram Bonjan is putting himself in danger, not only by refusing sustenance, but also by sitting exposed to the elements and wildlife. This fatalistic attitude to death is very common in Asia.
So at this time, he lacks calories, he lacks proteins, he lacks vitamins, and he lacks water, so he would be susceptible to illnesses.
He's got no ability to maintain an immune response or to support an immune response, and it does increase his risk of dying from an acute infection.
This lack of fear in dying is reflected in the way Nepalese conduct their funeral rituals. In the West, they're private, sad affairs. But there's openness here, an acceptance that sees death as a part of the cycle of life. Many put their bodies through extremes, as they think it's their mission in life.
There are many stories about these rishi munis and these great sages in the past. Some of them could live without food and water for many years, not many months.
In modern literature, Giri Bala, the non-eating saint, survived without food and water for 66 years, the longest time on record. Today there are many that claim extreme fasting, from Pilot Bubba, who survived underwater for 5 days without breathing, to Yog Mata, who buried herself alive for 72 hours.
Even in Buddhist philosophy, there are people like that.
5 hours into the second day of watching Ram, detained at the 25-meter fence, a chance arises to try and find some answers to this extreme fasting phenomenon. Lama Lekshe, Grand Master from India, runs several monasteries around the world. It was at one of these that Ram was taught meditation. The Lama has come to check on his pupil and allows us to follow him into the inner sanctum.
The boy belongs to Chiku Buddhist monastery, which is in India, in Himachal Pradesh. And that monastery belongs to the Sakya tradition of Tibetan Buddhism.
Very little is known of Sakya, one of the 4 Buddhist traditions. Its leaders keep their teachings a closely guarded secret.
Buddha's teaching or our practice is not for your fame, not for your reputation, not to collect so many disciples. We usually don't expose much. We have another meditator. He has been doing this for the last 30 years. Today, his hairs are so long that he can't stretch down, so he put the small back hanged behind and then put all the hairs into that.
To endure solitary existence in extreme conditions, yogic techniques enable you to focus your mind over your body's suffering.
Obviously, if he's genuine, has to use some yogic techniques like feeding on the air, feeding on the breath. There are other techniques where you use stone Okay, a little stone that you put in your mouth and you feed on the stone. There are all those stories. They are documented in the literature, in Buddhist literature.
To understand what type of yogic technique Ram is practicing from the Sakya tradition of teaching, the Lama sits and stares at the boy.
I'm amazed by this immense, the intensity of his determination. He told his mother that he was going to sit there for 6 years and reach Buddhahood, you know, which is very rare. I mean, nobody says that, you know.
They sit facing each other for more than an hour in what seems to turn into a meditation duel. Sweat starts to form on Ram's face despite a lack of movement and an air temperature of only 15 degrees centigrade.
To suddenly start pouring sweat from the face is a very strange phenomenon. He's managing to control his body's physiological process, which no one has demonstrated before. It's not something you ever see in Western society. So how that's being controlled is beyond my level of knowledge.
When he was sitting down, I was doing my meditation. Actually, I was competing. And you know that the sweat came down.
Okay, so why did you sweat?
No, it's a secret thing I don't want to tell you right now.
In ancient Buddhist texts, it is written there is a yogic technique called tumo, which increases the body's temperature under intensive meditation. Sweating is a side effect.
The question is, a young boy like that, you know, how he has mastered this kind of techniques. Obviously, he has not practiced long time in caves or in solitude or in a monastery. So it's very rare, especially nowadays, to hear that somebody is doing it in front of everybody like that. I mean, totally live.
To understand how Ram learnt the practice of tumo and continues to survive without food and water, we must look into his past and his first visit to Lumbini, the birthplace of Buddha.
These places are the power point. If you step here with faith, devotion, and with mindfulness, definitely that energy will do something for your brain and as your physical body. Definitely a boy like that, you know, who is so much devoted and sitting for almost like 7-8 months meditating in a jungle, you know, when he touched this ground, definitely I believe he was very much inspired, maybe got some power. That's possible.
After Lumbini, Ram chose to study at a secret Tibetan monastery near Dehradun, India, 10,000 feet up in the Himalayan mountains and cut off from civilization. There are many examples of monks practicing tumo-intensive meditation in the hills nearby.
Ram sort of gravitate toward this monastery, and at that moment, I think it was 2002, I think, or 2003, that he came. It's sort of like his own recognition.
And but he's too different.
He's too different. Why is he too different?
There's it's something to like different to the other monks.
Tumo is a particular form of Tibetan meditation where the exponents are capable of withstanding extremely harsh conditions with very little food, very little water, and very little clothing.
Some lamas are doing meditation in the icy Himalaya. From their body they bring the heat. So, same way, maybe he has done that.
American scientists tested the theory in 1982. Monks were soaked in sheets of cold water. 45 minutes later, steam began rising through the cloth.
Some of the studies that I've been doing have shown that even novices using Tibetan chanting can increase their tolerance to cold pressor pain by 100% or more.
But imagine he can do this for hours and hours on days' ends. Extremely special skill.
But he learned to extra also.
Extra?
Yeah.
So he did extra hours in his classroom? Or?
Not classroom, in his room, like homework.
He's doing what they call is absorption kind of meditation. You train your mind to switch off.
The idea of meditation is to concentrate on your mind, to observe your mind in perfect equanimity. Even though I'm sure he's aware of what's going on, at the same time he keeps his concentration on his meditation. That's why he's so strong. That's why he's so impressive.
So I truly believe he's a Buddha from the past life. And coming to this lifetime at a young age.
Well, research has confirmed, that with the meditation, you lower your heart rate, you lower your cardiac output, and you also slow down breathing. So you really lower your metabolism to a level that much less food can really sustain you. But starving for 7 to 8 months, that has not really been looked at.
Especially Chinese people think that if you don't drink and eat, it's something. It's not for the Buddhist. It's nothing to surprise. Buddhists always think that you can change anything if you can control your mind.
On returning from the monastery in India, Ram spent an unhappy 5 months at home before leaving to meditate in the jungle. His meditation was disturbed many times before fences were set up to protect him. Suddenly, our filming is cut short again, as the brother catches us within the inner fence. He fears we got too close. His followers escort us from the area. It is only now that we notice the full scale of the operation that protects the boy. Dozens of disciples pace the perimeter. Others are hard at work building new fences, sweeping and moving on the throngs of devotees. There must be 40 on duty at any one time. Ram's brother has created a fortress around the boy. He lives in constant fear that someone will one day break the meditation. Despite his hostility, the brother unexpectedly offers to take us to the village where Ram once lived, allowing a camera to be left at the site to continue filming to prove Ram doesn't move.
Yeah, this is my house.
There are 9 children altogether living in a modest family home.
This is kitchen rooms.
Looking around, it appears life hasn't changed a great deal since Ram began meditating. Reports have said that donation money from the site is going into the pockets of the brother and his followers. But there is little evidence to suggest that the family are benefiting.
We do not use his money for domestic expenses but deposit it into a bank account. Obviously, once we have deducted the running costs of the site, like food and other such requirements for the volunteers and the committee.
Obviously, I feel some pain. He spent a long time in the jungle alone. It rained for 2 months at first. I feared he might die.
I asked him to join a monastery and was even going to spend 200 or 300 rupees on it. He refused, saying it was impossible for the teachers to give him that level of education he needs. He wanted God himself to be his guru.
Just 10 months ago, Granjajit Bomjan was a farmer working the land in the village like generations before him. Now he has a big responsibility, running a flourishing business looking after Nepal's biggest tourist attraction, one that's growing every day. Thousands have been flocking to see him, and in the 3 hours we've been at the house, 350 monks turned up to pay homage.
Ordinary 15-year-old boys are not wise like he is. He is special, he is a God himself. All souls have God within them, but he is a real God.
The brother seems to enjoy the power, holding court, giving press interviews and speaking to visitors. Scam or not, what Granjajit Bomjan has done is pretty remarkable, turning around what was an impoverished part of the country and uniting its local people. But how long can his authority remain unchallenged? The committee seems to be growing by the day. People getting fired, people coming in. Organized chaos. They all want a slice of the pie. Ram Bomjan has been sitting under a tree in the jungle of southern Nepal. His supporters claim without food or water for 10 months. 48 hours ago, we started filming continuously, day and night. Just what should his body be going through?
By day 3, you stop producing urine. The person's blood pressure will fall because there's not enough fluid in the system to maintain the circulation.
His cheeks would really start to get hollow. Your skin is going to get rough and it would crack more easily, it would bleed more easily, especially if someone is sitting in the environment and not really protected from the elements, the rain and the sun and the cold weather.
Ram still looks exactly the same. We've not witnessed him move, eat or drink anything since our arrival. But strangely we've seen him sweating profusely, an indication he's practicing tumo, an ancient form of meditation. Could this yogic technique explain how he is managing to survive and stay so healthy?
Through the power of his mind, he's been successful in physically lowering his whole metabolic state, so therefore his requirements are also going to drop to 200 to 300 calories in energy terms a day.
He'd have to be taking some nutrition from somewhere. Perhaps it was a tree sap. He would be getting sugars from that, and that would modify fast. That would protect some of his protein stores.
I think he's practicing types of ancient yogic exercises where you can feed on one breath or feed on the element in the air.
The bark of the peepal tree that Ram sits under can have a powerful healing effect on skin complaints, such as the physical signs of dehydration. However, its sap is poisonous, and its berries, while edible, only appear for 2 months of the year. He must be surviving on something else. So far, we've not seen anything to suggest he's being fed or allowed to leave the site. There's only one way out, and that is where we observe from. And we are not the only ones to be doing an investigation. Ram Bhakta Gurung and his science team have been doing independent research for the government and have been observing Buddha Boy for 6 days.
We think even there is from morning to evening like this meditation, it's not normal.
Overnight, the temperature reaches a low of 3 degrees centigrade, the coldest night yet since our arrival. The investigators and security shiver under blankets, but Ram is wearing just a thin cloth.
What you should see in a cold evening is him physically shivering. So if he isn't shivering, he's managing to suppress the natural urge to maintain his body temperature at 36.8 degrees centigrade.
This is more evidence to suggest Ram is doing the yogic technique of intense tumo meditation, generating his own body heat and preventing the onset of hypothermia. At 6 in the morning, we rush into the enclosure. Someone claims there's a blue light coming from his head. We cannot see it. How is Ram surviving without moving? There are theories about surviving off the environment, but everything is just conjecture. Nothing is fact. Until now. A scientific breakthrough claiming evidence to suggest that extreme fasting may indeed be possible has just reached us from another part of the world. A doctor in Ahmedabad, India, has contacted us after witnessing the boy on television. He says that his team have made a discovery that could finally solve so many questions.
I was really fascinated to see the boy who is fasting for 6 to 8 months, and that is not at all really so exciting to me because I studied similar cases in the past and I can understand this is possible.
Dr. Shah's most famous case is Prahlad Jani, a holy man who claims he has not eaten or drunk anything since he was 12.
I haven't eaten anything, not even now, even though I'm 80 years old.
That made me really quite excited because I knew that this is something going to change the feeling of medical world.
Although I walk 100, 200 kilometers in the jungle, I never sweat, nor feel tired or sleepy. I can meditate for 3, 8 or 12 hours or even months.
Prahlad Jani recently spent 10 days in observation, watched and filmed 24 hours a day.
Minute to minute, second to second. And he was kept in a cabin which was sealed from outside. The bathroom was sealed. One of my assistants would remain with him all throughout 24 hours in changing duty. Doctors would come throughout the day at different time which was not be told to him. And we made sure that nothing can go wrong in the sense medical world should know that there was not a single loophole.
They took blood samples from me 3 times a day, morning, afternoon and evening. They checked my kidney, brain and put machines all over my body. They were trying to find out which factors made my body work. They put machines inside my body also.
He was not given any food or water, and even when he was allowed to take a bath, the quantity of water was measured before and after to make sure nothing was lost.
As I said, after 10 days, the parameters were all normal. We studied his hematology, and whatever studies you can think of, we could do it.
I will live up to approximately 1,000 to 5,000, maybe even 10,000 years with this kind of body.
That there was no food or water given to this man, that he did not pass urine or stool, and even he did not dribble urine. After a few hours the urine would appear, some fluid would appear in the bladder and again it would disappear.
It is possible to modify fluid intake so you produce a very small amount of urine each day. And if he is covered with a cloth, the chances are he could urinate and it would evaporate from the ground or soak into the ground without anyone noticing.
Modern medicine tells us that an average human can only survive for 4 days without water. While confined, Prahlad Jani incredibly lasted 10 days under observation. Dr. Shah has a theory on how he's managing to survive without food or fluid. He feels the holy man is feeding off the sun.
Hiranathan Manik used to do solar gazing. He says that you have to go to a flat ground and barefooted and just look at the sun.
It's impossible for us to generate heat or light energy from looking at the sun, almost likening it to photosynthesis, which is the process by which plants generate their energy supply. And this is absolutely impossible for a human being to do.
On the first day you look for 5 seconds, but without blinking your eyes. Every few days you increase few seconds, and maybe after a month you come to a minute or so.
In fact, staring at the sun would damage the retina of the eye.
Scientists from America also examined him several times in ophthalmic system, and he found nothing abnormal.
The sun transmits energy through a hole in the holy man's throat, producing a sticky solid lump that he can redigest. This, he claims, refuels the chakra power points in his body.
It is not a miracle, it is supernatural.
Could these results provide the answer to how the boy is surviving without food and water? Unfortunately, we cannot take Ram to a lab. For us to have any chance of replicating the doctor's findings, we must head back to Nepal and set up once again from the beginning for 4 days and 4 nights of continuous recording and observation. However, when we get back to the site, we are met with a very different scenario. While we were away, 59 people witnessed Ram spontaneously burst into flames as fire erupted from his chest.
On the 5th of January, Wednesday, around 8 o'clock, we saw fire coming from him. He stood and threw the cloth in front of him and was naked in the middle of a burning fire. And then after some time, in a very soft voice, he called for his brother. He asked for a red rope to be thrown over him. He wrapped the cloth over his body and he said, let him concentrate on his meditation and do not disturb him.
Over the past 300 years, there have been more than 200 reports of spontaneous combustion, the burning of a body without an identifiable ignition source. Its cause is an unsolved mystery. However, looking at previous evidence of Ram's sweating and assuming that he can control and increase his body's temperature through tummo meditation, maybe this is an extreme demonstration of his power, or just an increasingly elaborate hoax to gain more publicity. After just a week away, security has tightened, and the brother seems a deflated figure.
When you start making about 20,000 rupees a day from this, and there's money involved, And this is Nepal. There's going to be fights. It would be unnatural if the committee hadn't started bickering about it yet.
The committee seems to have evolved and doubled in size, and it is not clear who is in charge. There are many voices, all challenging for superiority.
The family probably would feel left out of all this and probably feel like their son's original purpose has been defeated by all this money making, and that is very un-Buddha-like.
There seems to be a split within the committee as to whether or not we are to be allowed to continue.
In fact, the government's response has been very interesting. Originally they said, well, we're going to test the boy. The Royal Nepal Academy of Science and Technology is going to go and take blood samples and do a DNA test. I don't know why DNA, but they haven't done it yet.
The government of Nepal requested us to visit that site and observe what's happening it. We went very close by and we observed very minutely.
His body is almost dead, Only the head part is live.
We are concerned about the way of meditation without having any food and drinks. And next to that, the propaganda.
Face color was red, like blood color.
It is important to test on the boy if we want to know the truth.
The report sent to the government states that the boy should be left undisturbed to complete his meditation and not to be tested scientifically.
Whatever he is doing there, it is his personal right.
There's not even been an effort to try to regulate the income or see who's getting what and try to see if it's not being scammed, that people are not being cheated. There's no official oversight over this whole thing.
We reset our cameras to record the next 4 days and nights. The length of time it takes for a human to die without fluid. This is the only way we can prove if he is genuine or not. After 48 hours of continuous observation, Ram still hasn't moved.
What is almost unbelievable is the fact that this child manages to stay in the same position during waking hours and sleeping hours.
Try sitting for 30 minutes or an hour, 3 hours, not moving, just concentrating.
And within 24 to 36 hours, where the skin surface reaches the contact point of where you're sitting, you will get damage to that skin area. And the formation of what we know in the Western world is called a pressure sore.
It is the most challenging thing he's doing it. Incredible.
A few hours later, he begins fidgeting and jerking.
What you probably notice if you scrutinise your footage very carefully is that there are very small changes. What he's actually doing is shifting balance maybe from one buttock to another to relieve pressure points and allow blood flow back to that tissue.
As the sun sets, 60 hours into filming, and the committee take a tighter stranglehold, we find ourselves back with the family whose devotion for Ram remains undiminished. There are many that have altered their life to be in his presence. Some have never been home since arriving.
Please stay here a couple of days and feel for yourself. It's wonderful. We have lived here eating only once a day for many months.
I will stay here till my death.
The relaxed environment suddenly changes. When word goes through the camp, there is a tiger loose in the site. Is it for real? Or are the committee creating more hype around the boy?
The jackal was just over there. The tiger was a little further away.
Chaos reigns as many fear for the safety of Ram.
I understand the Nepali sense of the miracle of him not having taken food, not drinking, but for me, those are not the important issues. Whether he eats or drinks, I hope he stays healthy.
After a thorough search, tiger prints are discovered. We realize how vulnerable the boy really is. We wonder if Ram is the innocent victim in this spectacle. After 58 hours, life continues as normal. Donation boxes are filled, and the crowds start to arrive. Ram appears to show no classic signs of degeneration through fluid loss, but a closer look at our footage might help us understand his physical and mental health.
He looks unwell. If you saw this individual sat against a wall, in London, you'd be very concerned about how he looks.
As life passes him by, Ram just sits calmly meditating.
There is a swelling in his neck, but whether that represents a goiter or an underactive thyroid is very difficult to say. Having a severely underactive thyroid would mean that your metabolic rate is incredibly low, which means that you can survive for a very long time without food and fluid. It almost looks like you can see the ribs showing through, and that would represent quite advanced starvation, and you started to waste away the muscles between the lungs, between the rib cages. Probably sat in that position well away from individuals is the safest thing for him in order to prevent an infection that could ultimately kill him.
Is Ram now a victim of his own success, being slowly starved to death for profit? Only time will tell.
This could turn out to be a very sad story.
We have been observing Ram Bonjan continuously in the jungles of Nepal for 86 hours. In that time, we've not seen him take any food or fluid or show any signs of dehydration. An average human should be just a few hours away from death.
With a prolonged deficiency of food and water, your brain is going to lack the glucose, you're not going to have enough fluid in your system.
As you progress without those fluids, you become delirious. On day 4, that confusion will get worse. You may start fitting, your body is going into kidney failure, and ultimately the person dies of dehydration.
To rule out foul play within the secure inner enclosure, we defy the committee and enlist Prem Lema, Ram's oldest friend and carer, to get a closer look.
In the beginning, he used to walk around this tree in the morning, chanting mantras. After that, he meditated for 3 months before going into the deep trance that he's in today.
After a thorough search inside the tree and the ground area surrounding Ram, there's nothing suspicious. No food pipes buried or supplies hidden.
Are people there creating a scam for us to believe in? I hope not. It would be an elaborate scam to do that.
Surely if it was a scam, someone within the committee would have let on, told the papers, weakened for money.
The people in this area, they don't tell lies. They tell the truth that you have. That is also the proof.
After 96 hours of filming, Ram has defied modern science by continuing his meditation and remaining alive. Many of the pilgrims at the site are from a scientific background and are torn by what they see. Is he a miracle or a myth?
त्यति गरेपछि यो विज्ञान रिराइट हुन्छ यो विज्ञान फेलर हो हेर्नुस् यो मोडर्न मेडिसिनको म डाक्टरको कामै छैन यहाँ
है विज्ञान फेलर भन्न मिल्दैन कि यसमा के छन् विज्ञानले अहिलेसम्मको जति आविष्कारहरू गरेको छ नि
We have whole religions built around miracles. Jesus rose from the grave. Millions of people believe that. That's the center and core of their religion. Or do we say in another culture it's not possible? Everything is possible.
मेडिकल साइन्सको कुरा गर्नुहुन्छ नि मेडिकल साइन्स पनि अझै पनि पूर्ण छैन
Prolonged fasting is not as simple as we understand. We all should explore the benefits of this kind of fasting.
The debate over science and spirituality will always continue. And so too the tug of war between those who have Ram's best interests at heart and those who want to make a quick buck.
It's very difficult when you have that belief that you have an individual that has transcended our normal biological needs of food and fluid. It's very hard to reject that if you truly believe it.
Maybe the brother knows the answer. He has the key to the inner sanctum. He is the only one allowed to speak to Ram. He will continue to empty the donation boxes, reaping the rewards while the truth remains unresolved.
The media people should not create confusion. He will show the truth himself.
Despite the isolation, he has created a commodity, a celebrity icon for the whole of Nepal. Surely everyone's a winner in this situation.
After 6 years, he will bring the proof to the world. He will tell the truth by himself. I am this, I will do this, and I want to get this. I appeal to all the people in the world not to talk and say bad things about him.
No one really knows what Ram is thinking, how he is surviving, or if he is Buddha. And so it turned out. March the 13th, 2006, events took a turn that no one could have anticipated. Ram disappeared. Some reports suggest he's gone deeper into the jungle to continue his meditation in peace, undisturbed. Other reports are more sinister, claiming that he's been kidnapped. Perhaps Ram has decided against being a scientific miracle or a religious icon. The once thriving bazaar and bus park is deserted, the fence is broken, and the only trace of Ram is a red robe lying discarded in the hollow of a tree. He has not been seen since.
接下来，不丹王国境内由于重生的僧侣激增，活佛转世的认定规则可能被迫调整。活佛转世接着播出。